the interview became very heated.
The only thing I guess he didn't take into account is the guy sitting across from him was 6'5", 270 pounds.
And he came forward and starts jabbing his finger.
I'm curious what comes to mind about your Vince McMahon interview.
Well, I knew that there were topics to cover with McMahon. The XFL was in its first and last year. It was getting literally the lowest ratings in the history of primetime television for any programming, not just sports programming. And it was schlock. It was crap. No disrespect to any of the players and coaches, but in any case, I knew I'd have to ask him about that. And since he was there and was seldom interviewed in a real setting, I thought I should ask him about the turn that wrestling had taken from the sort of tongue-in-cheek, good-natured thing that I remembered watching as a kid to something that had a harder edge in the so-called Attitude Era.
Bob was really excited to sit in that chair and grill Vince McMahon on a variety of topics that were bugging him for years. This is a classic case of Bob wanting to spill his guts about how much he reviled WWE, as it's now called, and all that it stood for. And so when Bob had him there, finally, for HBO, he was going to go after him. And he knew he was going to go after him.
But the interview became very heated, perhaps because he wasn't expecting to be challenged, although I told him in the green room beforehand, there are going to be some tough questions here.
Take a look at the tape when you play it back. Right. How many times did Bob Costas interrupt Vince McMahon before he let him answer the question?
Just to try to keep you on point. Go ahead.
Sure.
The only thing I guess he didn't take into account is the guy sitting across from him was 6'5", 270 pounds.
And he came forward and starts jabbing his finger.
As Vince started leaning forward and pointing his finger at Bob, Bob didn't move back in his chair. He moved up with him. And they went toe-to-toe with their mouths. And it was electric.
So now we're like nose to nose, and I wasn't so much smiling as smirking. And I think that set him off all the more.
It's not fair to take one little excerpt of this and one little excerpt of that and then generalize, okay?
Let's end on this.
We have to end. I'm having fun.
He was very angry. It's HBO. It's live. There's no commercials. And it's like 27, 28 minutes, most of which is unremitting tension. And then he gets up to leave. I shake his hand. Vince, thanks for coming. He walks out, and you can hear the door slam. And wouldn't you know it, the next guest is Bob Knight. And I remember sitting down and saying, Coach, this is the one time in your life when your presence will lower the temperature in the room. No one remembers anything that Bob Knight had to say. The McMahon thing was a big deal. It got a lot of press. It wasn't it was my intention always to make it good television and to get some good points across, but it's never my intention to create a circus atmosphere in any situation. Other people may aspire to that. I don't. I think it goes opposite of what I'm trying to achieve. I don't dislike Vince. I think he's funny. I think he's talented. I certainly don't approve of everything he does, but some of the stuff is quite entertaining.
And didn't he call you like the next day?
Yes. The next morning, my phone rings. Bob, Vince, let's make it 2 out of 3 falls. I want a rematch. I said, great. And we did do the second about a year later, and it was very good, but much less heated on HBO. We've never had the third one, but I've crossed paths with him a few times since then. I was in a restaurant a couple of years after that, and the waitress taps me on the shoulder. Mr. Costas, Mr. McMahon would like to say hello. Oh, look at it, it's Vince McMahon. And he's with his daughter and Triple H, right? So I go up to shake Vince's hand, and Triple H stands up, this gargantuan guy, and he says, careful, Bob, this time he brought backup. Now, the only thing about this that it isn't even annoying, it's amusing. Vince continues to say, he said it in the documentary about the XFL, and he said it recently in a book that's a history of HBO. I wish that Bob was bigger, because then I could have kicked the crap out of him. Now, let's consider this premise. The premise then is, if I don't like your questioning, but as long as we're in the same weight class, it's okay if I just try to kick the shit out of you. What sense does that make? That's ridiculous on its face. It's dopey, but what the hell, who cares? I don't dislike Vince. If Vince walked in here right now We'd have a laugh. We'd probably go have a drink. And then he'd kick the shit out of me.